as we're learning the Justice Department's special counsel now, looking into all things Jan 6 related, has sent a new subpoena to a local official, this one in Georgia, and it's a name you probably recognize, the Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Meaning that as of now, officials that we know of in 5 states at least have been subpoenaed in this investigation, in Jack Smith's investigation of January 6th and of former President Trump. Let me bring in NBC News correspondent Blayne Alexander. And Blayne, I think folks remember Secretary Raffensperger because he's the one who was on the receiving end of that phone call where the former president insisted he find the votes, quote unquote, in Georgia. That was in 2020. Clearly, the special counsel sees him and his testimony as a key part of where this investigation heads.
And it's a pretty clear sign, Hallie, that it's moving beyond that investigation. Is moving beyond just the day of January 6th itself and kind of looking at the bigger picture and the events surrounding that. So you talk about that infamous phone call that happened back on January 2nd, so a few days before January 6th. But it's very clear now that that is also being looped into this part of the investigation. Now, speaking with Raffensperger's office, they did confirm that that subpoena was received, but they say at the request of the DOJ, they're not commenting any further. But according to a source who is familiar with the subpoena, we understand that this is seeking documents from the Secretary of State, right? This is a 2-page subpoena that's seeking documents, but it's not asking the Secretary of State to come in and testify or appear in person. I think that's an important distinction to make there. We also know that it was dated last Friday. It wasn't received by his office until today. Now, when I asked about what sort of response may come from the Secretary's office and the timing on that, I was told that his legal team, Secretary Raffensperger's legal team, is currently reviewing legal options when it comes to a response. But Hallie, yes, it's certainly, when we think back on that phone call, more than an hour-long phone call, you'll remember that kind of shook up the runoff time. That was essentially when the former president was asking the Secretary of State to, quote, find enough votes to overturn the election. It's something that we saw Secretary of State Raffensperger testify about on Capitol Hill during those January 6 hearings. It's also, of course, the big thing that launched an investigation of its own down in Fulton County, Georgia, where that phone call was received. So certainly interesting now that we're seeing it have some bearing on this DOJ investigation as well.